Parliament's job is not only just to pass laws and budgets, it is to also decide what and who the country protects. So when we talk about children, we're talking about a group that cannot vote, a group that cannot lobby, and in some cases, they're not even able to safely complain. So this is why Parliament's responsibility is there. It is the duty of care. Maybe I'd just like to give a few examples. We can highlight three main points, which is law, budgets, and oversight. Now, on laws, we've seen some very incredible progress. For example, the Sexual Offences Against Children Act was strengthened in 2023 to better protect children from online sexual exploitation and abuses. Now, these amendments did not only just tidy up the language. For example, the term child pornography was changed, replaced with child sexual abuse material to reflect that children are not quote-unquote pornographic actors, but victims of abuse, and also highlighted new offenses such as live streaming, sexual crimes, and so forth. Another one that is extremely important to highlight is the Evidence of Child Witness Act, which basically introduces the legal companion services and better protection for children witnesses in court. Again, it's to create safer environments for children. Now, on budget, Parliament's responsibility is to make sure that when we talk about child-related commitments, it's not just a slogan, but these are backed by funding. For example, funding to implement child protection laws, to train police and prosecutors on online child sexual abuse, and also to expand mental health services for children. So for example, when we pass laws, but again, the agencies on the ground lack training or even the digital tools, for example, this is where we have unfortunately failed the children at the budget stage. And this is something that we need to make sure doesn't happen. So where I sit, for example, this is where I feel the real work happens. It's at oversight. And this is where, for example, the Parliamentary Special Select Committee on Women, Children, and Community Development has tried to be very proactive. Now, our committee doesn't just wait for scandals to happen. We call on mistakes. We look at the information, the data, and we listen to experts, the NGOs, organizations, and then this is where we also table reports and recommendation to the House. So recently, for example, the PSSC tabled a report warning on the looming mental health crisis amongst children linked to excessive internet use and digital addiction, as well as online harms. Now, this is where we highlighted evidence that is very high proportionate of Malaysian children who now own personal devices and spend hours online, often unsupervised. Now, this is where we didn't just stop looking at the problem. We recommended systemic responses, and again, there's a whole lot of discussions and work and meetings that happen. And just to highlight that, when we have the PSSC meetings, they are long. But it's just such an important thing for all of us to sit down and really focus on what matters the most. So, for example, let me just summarize. This is what systemic change looks like from the Parliament side. We hear the stories from parents, teachers, NGOs, and sometimes children themselves. And this is where the PSSC investigates. We call them ministries, KPWKM, KPM, Health and Communications, and also this is where we report to Parliament. And in Parliament, this is where Parliament debates, and this is where the MPs push the government to commit to timelines, budgets, and also institutional reforms. So for example, when child rights issues emerges, be it sexual abuse in institutions or even exploitation of children, refugees, bullying in schools, on digital harm, everything, the question for Parliament is, do we treat this as an isolated case, or do we treat this as a symptom of a broken system? So ultimately, our role in Parliament is to ensure that when a child is harmed, the system learns so that we can change, not to just focus on one file, but the future risk of thousands of children.